everyone, welcome to our video about, well, this one's going to be about lipids, but what we're going to do is we're going to start by talking about macromolecules as just a little review. So what are macromolecules? Let's remember that they are giant molecules that are made up of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur, abbreviated as CHNOPS. And carbon's the most important one. And you'll remember that monomers, which are kind of like smaller parts, they join together with each other to make polymers, which can be very, very large, especially in carbohydrates. We talked about how the monomer could be like a single glucose molecule, and it will bond together with other glucose to make things like sucrose, and then make even long polymers like chitin and cellulose. So monomers join together to make polymers. All right, like I said, this video is mostly going to be about lipids. So take a look at that picture and you might get some ideas about what lipids are. And you might start to think, they might have something to do with fats or oils, because you can see the jug of oil there. But lipids, they can do a lot of different things. They're not just in your food. So lipids can do energy storage. So we store our energy as fat, and lipids are fats. They can also help with insulation. So if you take a look at this guy down here, this walrus, you can absolutely see that he has a lot of blubber, and that is a lipid that is giving him insulation. Within our cell membranes, we have what's called a phospholipid bilayer. So it's a layer with two layers basically of fat, kind of fat, but they're lipids. And we'll talk more about that. We'll actually spend a whole unit talking about the cell membranes. So you'll see that again. Waterproof coverings, and then also chemical messages. So we'll talk about that. That's kind of an interesting one with steroids in your body. All right, so what makes up these lipids? They have a monomer, actually two monomers. They're called glycerol and fatty acids. So sometimes people say, well, if you eat too many lipids, you've got a lot of fatty acids. So glycerol is a monomer that can actually be attached to three different fatty acid chains, where each of these hydroxide or OH groups are, you can attach a fatty acid chain to a glycerol. So it can usually be one glycerol with three fatty acid chains. Lipid polymers. Well, there's a couple different types. One of them is saturated fats. And saturated, you can remember because saturated starts with an S and the word solid starts with an S. And when you have saturated fats, that's going to be a solid at room temperature. So things like bacon grease are really good examples of saturated fats, and so is butter. Unsaturated fats are liquid at room temperature, and those are going to be all types of different cooking oils. So like canola oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, vegetable oil, olive oil, any of those cooking liquids or cooking oils, those are unsaturated fats. So here's what makes a difference chemically. Saturated fats have a lot of hydrogens. You can see all around their carbons, they're full of hydrogens, or in other words, saturated with hydrogens. The unsaturated ones are missing a hydrogen, well, actually two hydrogens in here. So they have a little double bond with carbon going on where the hydrogens are missing. And that allows those molecules to kind of have a little bit more flexibility, and they are liquid at room temperature. The final type of lipid polymer would be wax. So waxes are also considered a polymer, and that's, you can see an example produced by bees. All right, we're going to talk about a special type of lipid right now, and those are steroids. So steroids, and a lot of them are also your steroid hormones, are things like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, aldosterone, and cortisol. I mean, you might have heard about some of those in health class, but the job of those steroids, they're what we call lipid chemical messengers, because they're going to send messages from one part of your body to another part of your body. They are kind of odd, though. If you look at the structure, they're not really considered to be polymers because they don't have fatty acid chains like we talked about earlier. And they're also not really monomers because they are not glycerol and they're not fatty acids. They're kind of their own shape. So they're really unique type of lipid, but they are considered to be in that lipid group because of the chemicals that make them up. Thank you so much for listening.